Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins with a man named Villain, looking for a safe place to camp on the icy hills of a desolate island. He wanders for miles, until he stumbles and falls into a frigid river, but he manages to climb out, and resume his journey. When he gets too fatigued to continue, he pauses to rest, grabs a flower to eat, and begins to reflect on how it all began. Villain was serving a life sentence in prison, for the assassination of 6 men, when he is taken to meet the prison governor, who asks him what he dreams about. He isn't the only one going through this, other of his fellow inmates are being summoned to the governor's office and asked the same question. The governor informs them that they have been chosen to be moved to a penal colony, and all inmates are soon loaded onto a ship. The convicts are divided into groups and placed in cells, just like in a real prison, although a man named Abolished acts like he is the boss, and even kills a man to take his bed. When the hatch is eventually closed, and the boat pulls off, the inmates begin to panic, believing that this is all a ruse to let them die at sea. After a while, everyone calms down, and attempts to spend the ride talking and eating, but in the middle of the voyage, a gang escapes from one of the cells in search of their compatriot. Abolished pretends to negotiate at first, only to kill the man they're looking for, sparking a riot, in which prisoners on both sides begin assaulting and killing each other. The struggle, however, is short-lived. The guards come swiftly, and after stopping them with a warning shot, throw a sleeping gas grenade to knock them all out. They eventually arrive at a remote island, where the captives are placed in numbered handcuffs, and left on the beach to listen to Mr. Olafsson and Marta, the project's leaders. Prisons have been running out of space to house such a large number of criminals, since the death sentence became prohibited in all countries, which is why the Russian government has provided this property to begin this project. The convicts are colonists living under their protection, and everything they need to survive is provided, including 3 months' worth of food. A satellite will constantly monitor them, and there will be some communication buoys nearby. They can take a boat to one of them, press the red button, and state what they need. If a green light shows, the request has been accepted. Marta notes that the buoys can also be used to request to quit the project, by stating their name and the reason for their request. They will be returned to prison if they do. The guards drop a handful of keys on the sand before leaving, saying that they are numbered to match their handcuffs. The inmates run up to them, and begin fighting over them, while Villain and Sipa remain securely behind, only snatching the keys that the others drop. Starry also decides to stay behind and see how a gang forms a line around the keys to keep their rivals out, and how another group goes to the crates the guards left, to pick up weapons and attack the crowd with them. Ali's group eventually takes control of the situation. Ali takes clothing and new shoes for himself and Starry, before selecting a man to send out on the boat, but as soon as he picks someone, the group attacks, and the fight resumes. Dozens of men are killed in the fight. Moriak kills Ali with a rock, Abazian kills Starry with a rock, and the 3 men who board a boat to reach the buoy drown. All of the surviving prisoners proceed to the warehouse, and begin distributing the supplies, while Abazian uses the equipment to forcefully unlock his restraints. Villain packs a bag of supplies and grabs a jacket, while Sipa says there is no way the food would last 3 months. Villain then departs the area to survive on his own, and perhaps find a way out of the island, returning us to the beginning of the story. Villain wanders the island, until he discovers an area without snow and a rocky formation, that will provide some shelter. He misses his family so much that he falls asleep with tears in his eyes. He wakes up later when he hears some squealing. It turns out that the goods were infested with rodents, who are currently consuming his food and bag. When it begins to rain, he seeks cover behind the rock formation he noticed earlier, lights a fire for warmth, and heats some water. When the rain stops, he catches a bird and roasts it over the fire, which is when Sipa finds him. He tries to steal his knife while chatting with him, but Villain notices him and takes it back. Sipa offers some salt and his assistance in exchange for some meat, which Xiling accepts, so Sipa goes to gather additional wood, and notices Villain's family portrait posted on the rocks. They share the bird, and when they're finished eating, Sipa walks to the cliff's edge, stating that he doesn't jump because he's too terrified. When the 2 men fall asleep, Villain awakens to find Sipa has taken the photo, and is using it as inspiration for his depravity. Villain beats him up and pushes him off the cliff, but Sipa survives, because he falls on a hill just underneath. Despite their quarrel, the 2 of them continue to travel together, as they explore the island. Villain attempts to fish, but they only find some kind of aquatic centipede, which scares Sipa. Villain is surprised to discover a piece of an aircraft among the rocks while searching around. It only takes going a little further up the hill to find the full plane, which gives him some optimism, because he used to be a pilot and could fly it. However, 2 men are insufficient to carry it, so they return to their refuge for the time being. Dylan builds a fire with some matches he found in the warehouse, but they contain something that emits highly hazardous smoke. He walks away from the flames, dragging a sleeping Sipa with him, who refuses to wake up at first. He continues to spew nonsense, and Dylan believes the cold is about to kill them. The two men decide to return to the base, and try to grab some coal. Life hasn't been easy for everyone back at the base. Abazian and his gang are in command, and maintain a routine while sharing resources. He even requests that they refer to him as governor. They lock everyone who isn't on their team inside the barracks, only allowing them to go for a walk in an enclosed area, akin to a real prison, while Astonitz yells at them from the watchtower. When they are sent back, they must flee, because whoever is last is killed and eaten later. Dylan and Sipa make it to the coal box, and discover the remains of a fire. They've been traveling for so long that they're almost frozen cold, so they can't help but fall asleep next to the fire. But Sipa immediately awakens when he hears some noises. The gang is on their way over with their latest prisoner for roasting. He goes behind a boulder to hide, but Dylan is still out there, so he returns to save him, but he isn't fast enough, and Abazian's men find and grab both. They are returned to base, where Abazian attempts to determine their penalty for fleeing with supplies. Yakut attempts to remind them that they were on their side during the ship conflict, prompting Astonitz to mock him for interfering. Yakut responds by punching him, prompting the entire gang to team up to strike him back, earning Yakut a place in the barracks alongside Dylan and Sipa. When Astonitz announces that it's time to leave, Dylan waits behind, but Sipa approaches him and tugs him inside. They can only watch as the last man standing is apprehended and tied to a pole, pleading for water as his dying wish, so Sipa takes pity on him, and places a cup to his lips, before slaying him. Later, before going to bed, the gang talks about the idea of rebelling. They're hesitant because it could be harmful, but Shram persuades them that it's worth a shot. Tolya shows Abaziankat that he's set up a concealed trap in his workshop, to catch any potential robbers. Astonitz tries to get the group back inside after their daily walk, but only two men run, the rest stand back and come together, while Yakut throws a rock at Astonitz to silence him. Dylan approaches Abazian, and makes him a deal. If he lets them go to the buoy and ask for food, he'll tell him where he located the plane. He accepts and opens the gate, allowing them to leave. He asks his men if they know anything about Dylan while Tolya and Dylan are on the boat, and that's how he discovers he was a pilot. He instructs the others to return to the barracks as soon as the boat reaches a safe distance, thereby canceling his arrangement. Yakut tries to confront them, but is murdered right away, so Abazian snatches one more man, before declaring the game is back on. The group can only retreat back to the barracks, because fighting Abazian's troops would be a bad idea. Meanwhile, at sea, one of the men falls overboard, but they catch him and haul him back up. Tolya arrives at the buoy and requests assistance, but it is broken, and none of his equipment will help. They return to the coast, and Dylan informs Abazian that food is on its way, but Abazian is skeptical, because there is no green light of confirmation. Tolya reminds him of the plane's existence, which Abazian doesn't believe either, but it motivates one man to wander around with his arms open like one. Abazian takes him by the neck, giving Tolya the opportunity to attack him from behind, and murder him. Amorbek and Ertsanov, two other members of his gang, kill the rest of their group, while Astonitz flees before they can arrest him. They ask Dylan what they should do next, and he tells them to free the soldiers from the barracks, because he swears food is on its way, and they just didn't see it since the light was damaged. The men are hesitant, reminding him that they now have enough dead to feed on later, but Tolya believes they should be buried. Amorbek and Ertsanov finally accept after Dylan informs them about the plane. They free the inmates, and inform them they'll be waiting a few days for the food to arrive, but they won't be using each other as food anymore, so everyone needs to keep calm and cooperate. They'll also send a team to retrieve the plane, which they'll store in a hangar they'll build, and gradually fix so it can escape later. Sipa declares that there is no satellite, and writes an SOS message using sand and 3 bodies. Later, Dylan leads a group of men to the plane, and their spirits soar as they realize he's been telling the truth. They disassemble it for easy travel, and return the pieces to the base together. Marta eventually arrives on the island, accompanied by a swarm of guards. They employ gas to keep the guys at bay, but they do allow Dylan to visit her, and discuss the list of items they've asked for. She is perplexed as to why they are requesting gas, and he explains that it is for the generators. In reality, they want the plane's fuel. Dylan seizes the opportunity to inquire as to why they did not respond to Sipa's SOS message, and Marta reveals that their satellite is of the infrared variety, which detects heat. As a result, they are able to locate people and stoves, but not words. She also wonders what people were doing so far away from the base a few days ago, and he informs her that they were fishing. They don't believe him, because there aren't any fish in the vicinity, so he lies again, telling them they've been eating centipede-like animals, which she finds alarming. They also want to know how many of the original 206 colonists are still alive, which Dylan suspects, because they should be able to tell using their satellite. He informs them that there are 87 people remaining, many of whom are sick, but no one wants to abandon the project and return to jail. Marta tells Dylan that he has the right to make one personal request before she leaves, so he hands her a couple sheets of paper, and begs her to look after the group properly. Dylan and his men test the gas in the plane hidden in the hangar, and gladly confirm it works. As the guards and Marta depart the island, they see a new batch of American inmates arriving. These inmates have a leader as well, a huge man, with whom Dylan tries to shake hands. The man, instead, punches Dylan, resulting in a brawl between both parties. The fight is fierce, and no one hesitates to go for the kill, so Sipa drags Dylan with him to the workshop to hide. One of the Americans attempts to follow them, but falls into Tulya's trap and dies quickly. Ertsanov confronts the American leader and is defeated, but before he can be executed, Amorbek intervenes and kills the huge man instead, as the buildings around them catch fire. The project's leaders are keeping a close eye on everything. Marta contacts the central office, and is directed to proceed with Code Naked Island, which dispatches a swarm of guards to the island, and shoots all of the remaining inmates, as Marta destroys Dylan's letters. Fortunately, a few men survived by hiding in the mountains or the hangar: Dylan, Sipa, Ertsanov and Tolya. They all push the plane out, but just as they're about to board, Sipa says farewell, and goes to the hills to plunge into the water, no longer frightened. The remaining trio boards the plane, and Dylan manages to get it to take off safely, despite the guards shooting at them. His two companions are killed, but Dylan remains unharmed by the gunshots, and soars away into freedom. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.